And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome historical thriller author Gabriel Valjan to the show, here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new book, The Company Files #3, The Devil's Music. Gabriel, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
The book is the third in the series, and it is now set in 1953. It's immediately after the Rosenberg executions. Now, if you don't know that story, briefly, the Rosenbergs were a husband and wife team. They got accused of being spies for Russians. Allegedly, they stole atomic secrets, sold it to the Russians, got caught. There was a lengthy trial, and eventually they were executed. At that time, nobody really thought they were going to execute a husband and wife. They were also parents. So my story opens up immediately after the execution, and the major plot point here, and you can read the book as a standalone, is that this is the beginning of the early part of the CIA. So that's the title of the company. They were founded in 1948. So the characters you meet knew each other in Europe. So in the naming game, which was the second book, they kind of ran counter to J. Edgar Hoover. Now, J. Edgar Hoover, as you know, founded the FBI, worked his way up from being a fingerprint expert, became the head of the FBI. The problem is he did not want the CIA to exist. He wanted to control everything in law enforcement. So when the Rosenbergs were executed, the trial actually was run by Roy Cohn. Many of you might know Roy Cohn later. Roy Cohn was a legal mind, also a very vindictive person. He was part of Senator Joseph McCarthy's committee. If I step back for a second, Senator Joseph McCarthy came out in 1950 and he said, "Hey, I've got a list of 200 communists and they're a government." And Roy Cohn, along with others on a committee, started investigating people, grilling people. And they started off in Hollywood, went after the studios, actors, actresses, because a lot of script writers and actors experimented with communism in the 30s. A lot of them dropped it. But Roy Cohn basically took it and ran with it. Now, the problem is that when Joe McCarthy made this allegation, he never produced any of the names. So in a lot of ways, it's similar to what we have today for fake news, where if you just make the allegation, you don't necessarily have to prove anything. So the thing is with Roy Cohn is he led the prosecution that led to the execution of the Rosenbergs. So that gave him a lot of power, a lot of leverage. And in my book, the story basically goes, now he wants payback. He wants revenge on everybody he felt slighted or, basically were not cooperative with him. So he started going after people, and he was planning to go after one of my characters who was undercover in the naming game as a scriptwriter. He was trying to investigate a murder that had happened, and he ran afoul with Roy Cohn. So basically, what happens here is they decide that the way to be safe is to move everybody from LA to New York. So the most of the story takes place in off Broadway. That's their cover. They're going to do a play. And part of their logic of why they went to New York was because the McCarthy committee, even though they attacked Hollywood, a lot of writers fled east, and they were never successful on serving a subpoena in Manhattan. So they went back east basically to hide out. They take the team, another actress who was also a bullseye for Roy Cohn. Unfortunately, what they did not expect is that they were walking into the middle of a power struggle in the mafia. So if you kind of remember from The Godfather, where um, Don Corleone's big objection was he did not want to get involved in narcotics, that he did not want to get involved with drugs. A lot of that was sort of based on truth, although I think Don Corleone is kind of a mix of different mafia bosses. But the two main ones that I'm dealing with in this outing is you have Frank Costello, who is actually in prison, but he's accessible. He was very much against narcotics. And his logic was similar to, Vito Corleone was, if I get into this business, I'm going to alienate all the people that I'm friends with, judges, lawyers, politicians, because it's a dirty business. It's not like gambling where you make a choice. It's not like prostitution or the street rackets. So there was a sort of moral edge to it. So Costello was running one of the five families in New York. His opponent was Vito Genovese, who obviously was one of the earlier people. He wanted to go into narcotics. He saw it as lucrative. He didn't really care who he was selling it to. But the problem was, at that time, in order to do businesses and territories and do things, there was a commission. Each boss from each family had to sign off on what you were doing. And Vito did not have the approval of the commission to do this. So what he decided to do was try to take out Frank and Frank's allies. And my team of characters are caught in the middle of this, partly because off Broadway was Frank Costello's territory. So I have a character who goes to Frank and says, hey, I need your permission that if I put my people here, no harm will come to them. Vito eventually finds out about it and starts interacting and starts messing up the works. So I don't want to give too much away, but there's your conflict. There's your team of characters. I have.
Wow, Gabriel, I'm just gonna jump in really quickly and just welcome everyone who's watching with us on Facebook, on YouTube, Murder by the Books channels, my channels, wherever you're watching from, you're in the right place as we get the inside scoop on this McCarthy era historical thriller, The Devil's Music by Gabriel Valjan. So if you've been here before, you know how this works. And if you're new, welcome. We're so thrilled to have you. Here's how it works. Every Monday, I give you my two hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So Gabriel clearly has done his research. He has done his homework. So if you've got questions about his writing process, about his research, about J. Edgar Hoover, about the Corleones, about 1950s mafia families, about the execution of these accused spies, get them going in the comments. I will get them right over to Gabriel. Gabriel, M.A. Monin is saying, I hope I'm saying that right. She's saying the plot thickens. The plot thickens indeed. So let's talk about this, because you open with the day of the execution of the Rosenbergs. This is not this area, this 1950s period of American history is not one that is my expertise. I had to look up if those were even real people. I didn't know if they were your characters. I didn't know if they were real people. I was shocked to discover that they are in fact real people, these Rosenbergs. So let's start there. Do you think they were guilty? Do you personally?
Honestly, yes, I do think they were guilty. But the caveat here was, I do not think they were guilty to the extent that the government believed that they were. So in other words, I don't think they traded. They were accused of trading schematics and drawings and whatnot. I don't think what they gave the Russians ultimately was that valuable. And the problem I really had with the whole trial when I was studying it was basically Ethel. It was Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. Ethel, the wife, her brother was actually much more guiltier than them, and he basically sold out his sister to avoid the death penalty and to avoid. He did end up doing some prison time, but basically he sold out his sister, and she knew it. The reality was, and this is confirmed, that even though the president denied them clemency and wasn't going to let them not be executed, the reality was they were going to be spared if she talked, because the government wanted names. The government was really obsessed with having names. The problem was she called their bluff, and they both got executed. Now, one of the things I want people to know is, and this is something that when you were talking about not knowing the history or not being as familiar with it, there's another character that shows up in the novel, and that's Robert Kennedy. A lot of people don't know that Robert Kennedy and Joseph McCarthy were actually very, very close. Joseph McCarthy was the godfather to Robert Kennedy's daughter. So Robert Kennedy was working in the Brooklyn office, DA, and Joe called him up and offered him a job. So at this time, he was a young lawyer, in many ways like Roy Cohn, insecure. Robert Kennedy, and a lot of people know Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy. The brothers were not that close at that time in their life. Robert was pretty much trying to make his own reputation. He was under the shadow of his father. His father publicly called him a runt. So Robert had a chip on his shoulder and had a lot to prove. So he took the job with Joe. McCarthy was planning to join the committee hunting Nazis, not Nazis, commies. The thing was, he thought when he saw Roy Cohn, they didn't know who was going to be the lead legal person. So Robert actually worked under Roy Cohn, and the two of them had a lot of battles, and ultimately Robert Kennedy stepped away because he couldn't work with Roy Cohn. But I think that would be a nice unexpected surprise for readers, because I don't think a lot of people realize that Robert Kennedy was actually much more involved in the legal system. So you can understand why ultimately he became Attorney General under his brother.
Wow.
And I sort of set up in this book how Robert comes to know about the mob, because most people, if they know anything about Robert Kennedy, know that his biggest battles were against Jimmy Hoffa. That came a little bit later when he went after the Teamsters, and they basically became mortal enemies.
Wow, this is absolutely fascinating. Melissa Watson saying, hi, Sarah and Gabriel, joining us from Australia. Hey, Melissa, always great to have you. She's saying, wow, I know nothing of this, but very interesting. Melissa, I also know nothing of this, and I am fascinated. And oh my goodness, award-winning author Tracy Clark has entered the chat. Queen Tracy, welcome to the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Tracy is, of course, the award-winning author of many books, most recently Runner. She was on the show in July when Runner came out. Fabulous, fabulous book. She's saying that she is fascinated by the Rosenberg case. Tracy, tell us what fascinates you about it. I am embarrassed to say I had heard of the Rosenbergs. I didn't really know who they were, what they were accused of, and I had no idea that they were accused spies selling secrets to the Russians. Gabriel saying he does think they were guilty, but not to the extent that the American government believed. The brother sold the sister out. The sister wouldn't give names. She called the U.S. Government's bluff, and they called her bluff, executing both of them. This is a crazy conversation already. Michelle Houlihan, welcome to the conversation. She said, this is fascinating. I totally agree. This is absolutely too crazy to make up. Mally Becker saying politics, the FBI, the mafia, all off Broadway. You must have done so much research for this book. What did you learn that surprised you the most? And I want to get to that in just one second. Tracy saying that what fascinates her about the Rosenberg case is that there's so many levels to the case, so many deals made, and the secrets.
Right.
And I want to get to those levels in just 1 minute. Michelle saying from Canada, she's joining us from Canada. Michelle, welcome to the conversation. She said she wants to read it now. Michelle, you can. This book is for sale now. I'm going to plop the link in the comments. Let's get to Mally first. So, Gabriel, what did you learn that surprised you the most? Great question, Mally.
There were two things that really surprised me. One, I sort of mentioned earlier, was I did not realize how badly Joe Kennedy, Sr., the father, how badly he treated his son. I mean, he really gave Robert Kennedy a major complex. I mean, as I said earlier, in an interview, and he was quoted, he called his son a runt. Everybody else was fine. Joe Jr., who eventually got killed in World War II, could do no wrong. John, who later became president, was an athlete, charismatic, smart, and Robert's the runt. So the second thing I learned that I was surprised was one of the characters who appears in the novels, Albert Anastasia, who was the head of Murder Incorporated. He was the guy when the Mafia Commission decided that they were going to do away with somebody. They gave him the contract, and he gave it to his team, and they went and they killed the people. What I found shocking about Albert was, here he is. They called him the Mad Hatter, Lord High Executioner, Stone Cold Killer. And on weekends, he would take the neighborhood kids to movie theaters and buy them ice cream. And he loved dogs.
What? Usually dog people are the best kind of people, Gabriel.
I mean, it's like total paradox. Here you got this guy, he's a stone killer, and he's a big, mushy softie for kids and for ice cream. And he would get upset if a dog got hurt.
That's crazy. I mean, I love dogs. I'm the consummate dog person. I love ice cream. Who is this guy who takes kids to get ice cream, who loves dogs, but can slaughter a person and not blink twice? How is that? Is surprising. That is crazy. Wow. Cool tidbit. Thank you, Gabriel. M.A. Manin saying McCarthyism seems to be a time of witch hunts with people turning each other in. Do your characters get involved in that aspect of the time period? Gabriel, give us the skinny.
So they are involved. They're not involved in hunting communists. The thing that is also paradoxical about the early days of the CIA was immediately and literally as Berlin was burning and the war was coming to an end, bear in mind that Russia was our ally during World War II. So we became aware through the intelligence community, which at that time was the OSS, that the Russians were building atomic weapons. So what the CIA did in the final days of the war, they started recruiting Nazis. So a lot of our top scientists in scientific research communities, at universities, NASA, were former Nazis. And we gave them new identities, or we softened their profile so that we knew, like if we knew they committed war crimes, they doctored the evidence.
What?
So in this story, part of the reason they're afraid of Roy Cohn is not just a personal vendetta. They're worried about protecting the people that they recruited. So think about this. The rest of the world's hunting Nazis. Hunting communists, and they're protecting Nazis.
The U.S. government is recruiting Nazis? Gabriel, this is too crazy to make up. How? I can't believe
our entire missile program in the 50s going into the 60s and the foundation for NASA was based on the work of Nazi scientists.
What? This is me being shocked. I cannot.
So getting to Tracy's point, these are the deals and the secrets that we made.
Wow. M.A. Monin is saying this is fascinating. M.A., I totally agree. I am in shock.
Now, one of the things you had asked me earlier if I had thought the Rosenbergs were guilty.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Roy Cohn knew that they were guilty. Obviously, he was trying to prove that in his trial. The problem was that the way to prove that they were guilty, the U.S. government would have to admit in a court of law that they were eavesdropping and taping conversations in embassies, because they had taped an exchange of information that mentioned the Rosenbergs in a Russian embassy and in a DC embassy. Now, if you know anything about embassies, they're basically like sanctuaries. They are that government on whatever soil that building's on, and they're sacrosanct. You cannot violate them. So, for example, if you were an American citizen and you had a problem and you ran into an embassy and it's an American embassy and you're an American citizen, they have to protect you.
Right.
So my point is, Roy had the tapes. He heard them. But the problem is he would be opening up a different can of worms.
Ooh, interesting. Wow. Deborah welcome to the conversation. She's saying this is stuff not covered in high school history class. Deborah, well said. Gabriel, let's talk about your research process, because you must have a very thorough, very rigorous, intense process to be uncovering all of this crazy true stuff. How did you find the stuff that's not covered in history class?
Well, not to sound like the X-Files, it is out there. You just have to know where to look for it.
So where did you look for it?
So I spent a lot of time in the library. I do use the internet, but I'm cautious with the internet unless the site or the historian or whoever is well documented, because this is the kind of stuff that when you put it out there, you want to make sure that you have it factually correct, even though there are fictional elements to my novel. It's not nonfiction; it is meant to be fiction, but the basis of the plot, I drew information from real history. So you have people that have written memoirs. I read memoirs by CIA case officers who made it a point that their memoirs would be published posthumously. And what's fascinating about the early days of the CIA is that they made a lot of mistakes. They were very naive. They didn't know exactly what they were going up against. They didn't know the level of treachery that they had. Some of the Nazi scientists lied to them about war crimes.
Right.
So
you're a Nazi.
Nothing's perfect. And then when you deal with somebody like J. Edgar Hoover, who was a character unto himself, he was really a scary person. What do
you think was scariest?
Well, one, he was overtly racist.
Yikes.
He actually wrote memos where he spoke disparagingly of African Americans.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
And I can't use the words online.
No.
So he was the type of person that also knew how to take advantage of moments. So, for example, in the 30s, you see this a lot in movies. The FBI went after the America's Most Wanted, people like Dillinger.
Yes.
Well, Dillinger, technically, if you looked at and read about what happened to him, he was ambushed and assassinated. But when he found out about it, he actually sent a memo, sent a telegram saying, put the body on ice because I want my agents to take a picture next to the body.
What?
Because it's a good day for the FBI.
Oh my God, that's
So
crazy.
he knew how to do PR.
He knew how to do PR. Melissa saying, "Oh, what a wicked web we weave." Indeed, indeed. Tracy Clark saying, "See levels." Okay, Tracy, I see. I'm seeing what you're talking about now. I had no idea. Wow.
But you have to understand at that point in the 1950s, America at that point had just shifted from an agrarian society to a urban setting. We were the only country on the world theater stage that had our infrastructure in sound. So we were poised to be a world economic power. Russia, even though they lost the most people, they were rebuilding their society. I mean, Russia, like I said, was our ally during World War II. And then on a flip of a dime, they become our enemy.
Right.
Communism was a danger to democracy. Communism was a danger because communism is atheistic. So these were all elements that politicians exploited. So you had a new enemy, heightened patriotism, heightened paranoia, and we were ready to seize power because the rest of Europe was rebuilding.
Wow. Michelle saying, Gabriel, your ability to take us through the era and atmosphere of the time in a way that engages is amazing. Michelle,
thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment and for appreciating this fascinating, crazy journey into the unknown truths of American history during the McCarthy era. Gabriel,
so
thank you.
I'm hoping that people see parallels to what's going on today in terms of fake news, how people can be manipulated, how people can be led to believe one thing when the truth is shades of gray. And that was the thing I thought was very interesting about Roy Cohn and RFK and J. Edgar Hoover. It was a perfect storm of personalities because each of those men, they didn't see gray; they saw black and white. So that is very dangerous because they wanted to see what they wanted to see, and they excluded everything else from their field of vision.
Interesting. Michelle also saying that perhaps some of the reasons that Kennedy was such an advocate for the underdog was because he had been in those shoes. His father, I'm learned tonight, used to call him the runt. That could not have been
the runt of the family.
Yikes. That's not kind. That must be very painful for a son to be called that. Gabriel, let's talk about Tracy Clark's comment earlier. So many levels to this case, so many deals made, so many secrets. So you've given us some of those deals.
Okay.
NASA, recruiting former Nazis. The Rosenbergs being caught on information illegally obtained through wiretaps to embassies, which are supposed to be sacred spaces, then being in this between a rock and a hard place. In order to prosecute them, we'd have to admit where we got the tapes. What are some other shocking deals made, secrets to trace levels to the case? Give us the skinny.
So during World War II, we really didn't know what the Germans were going to do. There was rumors of U-boats along the East Coast. One of the major fears that the U.S. government had was they felt that New York Harbor was not going to be safe because they had ships going in and out, passenger ships, goods, commercial goods, and stuff like that. So they went to the mafia and approached Lucky Luciano, who was doing a prison term for basically prostitution and tax evasion. And they said, can you guarantee us the safety of New York Harbor and put us in contact with your friends who are Italian to help us with the invasion of Italy? So Lucky Luciano, being quite savvy, said, well, I'm in prison. What can you do for me? So they said, well, you're in here for 20 or 30 years. I think he had at that point served 8 to 10. They said, well, we need to save face. So what we'll do is, if you can guarantee us what we want, we'll deport you. You don't have to finish your sentence. So they deported him back to Naples after the war, and he lived there from like 1946. I think he died in 1962. So the deal was made. There were Nazis that were caught in New York Harbor, courtesy of the longshoremen, who also worked with the mafia. So there's a funny Humphrey Bogart film called All Through the Night. It's kind of playing on that theme of Nazis infiltrating New York Harbor. They try to blow it up. But my point is, Luciano did make a deal with the U.S. government. He guaranteed the harbor, got time cut off his sentence, and got deported.
Wow.
And there was never an invasion of the harbor.
I had no idea. Tracy Clark, thank you for bringing up this concept of levels, deals, and secrets, which has just revealed these tasty nuggets. Gabriel, I am shocked. I had absolutely...
If that's 65, 70 years ago, what do you think they're doing today?
Right, exactly. Sally saying, it makes me wonder how much of our government is built on lies. Adding, makes me wonder how much of our government is built on lies and corruption.
Yes.
Yeah. Gabriel, you said that you had, you're seeing similarities. You're seeing parallelisms between then and now. Tell us a little more about this. And M.A. Monin is saying she doesn't see the link for the book for sale. I plopped it in the comments. Again, let me plop it there for you one more time.
Okay.
As Gabriel, you go ahead and answer that question.
So I mentioned earlier that the foremost obvious connection that I see between what I wrote about and what I see today is we call it fake news. In the 50s, I think people were a lot more trusting. TV was not quite a big thing yet. People still relied on newspapers. They still relied on the radio. And I think back then, people, even though they listened to gossip columnists and whatnot, I think they trusted what they were hearing and what they were reading. And, journalists were respected because, if they said something, they had to back it up. That they got called into court, they got called into a trial. Today, journalism, if you go and look at your various websites for the news that you follow, if you actually look at it, a lot of the articles are very copy and paste. And I've been on sites where I see at the very bottom that it's updated. So the article is already different than what I saw 2 hours ago. And my point is, going back to what McCarthy did, he waved a piece of paper in the air saying he had names of communists. He never showed that to anybody. He never published it. He never named names, but everybody, he set the house on fire and everybody believed him. So my point is, with the fake news, is you don't need evidence. All you need is the allegation. And that's extremely dangerous because you could destroy people's lives economically and otherwise, their reputations. I also think, too, that in many ways there are parallels with the legal system that when we read a trial in a paper online, we don't know what happened in the courtroom. We don't know the deals that were made, the plea deals, what evidence was allowed and what evidence was not allowed. So, unless you're actually in the courtroom, you're taking it on faith, what's reported to you. Right. So I'm basically saying, in so many words, think critically about what you're reading and question things. I mean, not to the point that you're paranoid, obviously, because we don't need to be wearing tinfoil hats. But the point is, be a little cynical about what you're hearing and what you're reading, because there's often something behind it.
Gabriel, where do you go for your news whilst thinking critically and evaluating it? What do you have? Do you have go-to sites that you get your daily news from that you feel safer?
Honestly, I read foreign newspapers and
Mhm.
foreign sites. Some of it I can read in the original language. Some of them have mirror sites where they will offer you, whatever the periodical is, they'll offer you an English version of it. So, for example, Le Monde Diplomatique, it's a French newspaper. The articles on government policy and things that are happening in the world that are in that newspaper are beyond what I see graduate schools doing for journal articles. The analysis is incredible. El País, a Spanish newspaper, they have an English mirror site. So you can read about everything that's happening in Spain and in Europe in English.
Mm.
Um, it is a learning curve. There are cultural things you have to learn, but the point is, I feel that the reader's not treated as an idiot. It's not a soundbite. You read an article, you are getting a real analysis of economic policy, political ramifications. When a politician makes a speech, what is he really saying? You have experts
Mm.
analyzing that. It's not, a short little
A
thing.
soundbite, right?
Exactly.
A distilled down to nothingness. Michelle saying, I was a Canadian journalist in the early 90s, and even then I had become weary of what was going on. We were told not to have bias from one editor and then told to slant by another. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
Michelle, thank you for that. Welcome to the conversation, Linda, Irma, Brad, Sally, Julianne, Colleen, Betty Ann, Shirley. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Welcome, everybody. We have just a few minutes left with Gabriel. So if you have any questions for Gabriel about his extensive research of this fascinating period in American history about McCarthyism, the communist hunt, J. Edgar Hoover, who worked his way up from being a fingerprint expert. I didn't know
Yes,
that.
he came from power during the Wall Street bombing of 1920,
Wow.
and he joined Attorney General Palmer in conducting raids and getting rid of people without a trial. Those raids became the precursor to ICE. Those laws were on the book in 1917. So that's how Hoover came to power. But I want people to know there is some humor in my books. It's not all deadly serious. I mean, the people have fun. There is some humor. I mean, it's not all.
Michelle would like to know, Gabriel, what are you working on next? Great question, Michelle. Thank you.
So next for me is I have another book out in January, but it is not The Company Files. It's with a different publisher, Level Best Books. It's also the third in the series, and it's with a former cop, now detective, or PI, I should say, named Shane Cleary, and it's set in Boston in the 1970s, and it involves the murder of a Harvard student, and it has to do with a murder trial conviction, potentially wrongful conviction, and Shane is trying to right the scales. Um, other things you might want to know about Shane is he has a cat named Delilah. His best friend is gay. He's a Vietnam vet. He was sort of like Frank Serpico. He exposed corruption in Boston, so that puts him on the outs. His actual closest ally is a mafia don. So I bring you to 1970s. It is not politically correct, although I don't think it'll offend anybody. But I also want to remind people, we've come a long way. So I hope people get to see that in January and see another series at a different time period.
Mally is saying it is a great series, your Shane series. She is a fan. Mally, thank you for the comment. Thanks for the feedback. Gabriel, Deborah is saying, what would we do without The Guardian in the UK? So few US news sources do real news anymore. Gabriel, your thoughts on The Guardian?
I do read The Guardian. I mean, it is, as she pointed out, a UK paper. I also try to look for the Scottish papers. You know, there's a lot to the UK, not just London, but it is helpful. I love their cultural articles. They, you know, the way they cover theater, they cover shows, they go far more in depth. They do great book reviews, and yes, it is nice to see how they look at us on the other end of the telescope.
Very cool. Michelle saying sharp and entertaining writing to sharpen the mind. I believe she's referring to your books there, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for the comments. Gabriel, I have to say, I'm just so fascinated by your extensive knowledge of the time periods that you write about. Just I love going down the rabbit hole with you on this fascinating journey. You guys, I think we have time for at least 2 more questions. So anyone who wants to ask Gabriel about anything about his Shane series, his Shane Cleary series, or the Company Files series, or his research, or anything, let me know. Melissa saying from Australia that this has been really eye-opening. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Been fascinating. It's been absolutely fascinating. And y'all, Gabriel likes to hang out on Twitter. So if you also like Twitter, please go head over. I'm going to plop his link right here in the comments. You can give Gabriel a follow. You can keep up with all of the latest on his new book. So here is his link. If you like Twitter, come hang out there. Gabriel, you said you're still figuring out Instagram, but he is on there. So everyone check it out. Okay. Michelle saying this has been such a great interview. Yes,
thank
Gabriel,
you.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It's saying that my link didn't go through with the Twitter thing, so I'm going to post it again. Everybody, hang out with him. I'm going to share Gabriel's website as well.
And there are excerpts for some of the books on the website if you want to look at them.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so everybody, here is the homepage for Gabriel's website, so you can read excerpts of all of his books, his Company File series, his Shane Cleary series. Check those out as well. And Gabriel, Deborah, great question. Who are your favorite authors, Gabriel?
I always go back to Dashiell Hammett. I enjoy him. I tend to like writers that write very clean, elegant sentences. So I like Hammett. I do like Chandler. I also like Muriel Spark. I'm kind of blanking. I'll probably remember more after I leave, but
maybe you could tweet it out, Gabriel, after if you think of it, because I always go blank when I think too. Okay, so I just make sure I got that. So Dashiell Hammett and tell me who else one more time.
I said Chandler and Muriel Spark.
And Muriel Spark. Okay, perfect. I'm probably misspelling all of these, but I'll come back and clean these up afterward. M.A. Monin saying, cool that you offer excerpts. Excuse me. She thinks it's very cool that you offer excerpts on your website. Okay. She'd like to know, do you recommend starting with the first Company File book first, or you said they could be read out of order, but do you recommend it?
They could be read standalone. Just as a quick overview, the first book is in 1948 Vienna. It's a lot of setup. You get to see the post-war environment. The main plot there is somebody's killing Nazis and they're trying to stop them because they're trying to recruit them. The second book, you're back here in the States. Walker, who is one of my characters, he goes undercover as a scriptwriter at Warner Brothers. That draws from a lot of real Hollywood history. And then, of course, the third one now is post-Rosenberg execution. So the first one is a little, I don't want to say slower, it's a little bit more world building. And the second one is faster. And I think the third one's also a fast read too.
Gabriel, so the Rosenberg investigations ending in their execution, yes, certainly starting book 3 off with a literal bang. What do you think will be shocking, too crazy to make up inciting incident that will start the Company Files book number 4? Like, what thing are you going to shock us with next?
I don't want to give away what would the opening be, but for the 4th one, I had thought about doing the story set in the Borscht Belt in the 1950s.
And what is that? I don't know what that is.
The Borscht Belt. If you've seen the movie Dirty Dancing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the resorts that a lot of Jewish people went to in the 50s throughout the 60s, they went there because a lot of clubs and social places would not accept Jewish people. But the point was, this is where they had entertainment, restaurants, clubs, great entertainment. And I wanted to set my story there because one of my characters throughout the series is a Holocaust survivor. And I was going to have him have a more active role in that particular outing because he's going to try to recruit somebody.
Very cool. Michelle saying, fantastic jumping off point for book 4. I hope you do it. Michelle, yes. Speaking on behalf of all of us, absolutely. I love that. Gabriel, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your expertise, for this fascinating, mind-bending, mind-blowing walk through this, to me, and apparently many of us, very unknown, covered up secret history, part of the U.S. This has been just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you all. And Gabriel, you can grab all of Gabriel's books. And for some reason, The Devil's Music is not showing up on Murder by the Book website, but I know it's there. So if you can call the store tomorrow, I'll drop it in there, and you can grab all of his past books, both the Sean Cleary series and the Company Files series, right here. At Murder by the Book, a perfect holiday gift for yourself or the historical thriller lover in your life. And here is the phone number for the store if you want to call them tomorrow. Mally saying, thank you so much, Sarah and Gabriel. This has been such a fun and cool interview. Mally, thank you so much for joining us. Gladys is saying, VOFYI. I'm not sure what that means, Gladys. Let us know in the comments a little more. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding that. Michelle saying, you handled the interview so amazing. Love your shared enthusiasm. I love history, Michelle. I love crazy too. This is what I love about nonfiction and about historical fiction, is that you can't make this stuff up. So as always, we will be continuing the conversation in the Mystery and Thriller Mavens Facebook group, free and open to all. So come over and join us to continue the conversation. M.A. Monin saying, thank you. This has been such a great talk. Y'all, I want to thank you. Thanks for the hearts up on Facebook, you guys. I want to thank y'all so much. Now, I will be off next week for, I will be here next week. I got my weeks mixed up. Next week, I have a fantastic author, cozy author coming from London, Ms. Amita, with her latest cozy. And I have Karen Oden with her historical thriller. So I will see you next week for hashtag Mystery Monday, because you know Mondays can be murder. Have a great night, everybody.
Take care.